I wasn't expecting anyone. It was one of those evenings when the world feels distant, like you're underwater. I had no plans except reheating leftover pasta and curling up with something sad on Netflix, just to remind myself I could still feel something. And then came the knock. Soft. Almost nervous. I paused. My body froze the way it does when your brain can't tell if it should hope or be afraid. Not many people knocked on my door uninvited anymore. I walked slowly to the door, barefoot. My heart wasn't racing, but it wasn't calm either. Somewhere in between, like it was trying to remember something. And there he was. Daniel. He stood there in his leather jacket, that stupid leather jacket that always smelled like night air and something warm underneath. He looked exactly the same, and nothing like I remembered. His smile was lopsided, just enough to feel real. In his hand was a small book. "You left this," he said. It was mine. I had forgotten it. One of those poetry books you only read when you're in love, or heartbroken. Apparently, I had been both. I reached for it. My fingers brushed his. I told myself it didn't mean anything. But it did. "You came all this way to return a book?" I asked. He shrugged. "I figured you might miss it." I didn't. Not really. But I appreciated the excuse. There was a pause. Not awkward. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like a held breath. "Do you want to come in?" I asked, before my brain could catch up to my mouth. He hesitated, half a second, and then nodded. "Sure," he said. And just like that, he stepped into my space. My safe space. My mess. My life. I closed the door behind him, and with it, something else opened. Not lust. Not longing. Something unspoken. He walked toward the couch, looked around like he was seeing the place for the first time. Even though he'd been here before. Plenty of times. Back when I was still dating his best friend. I hated that thought. He Saturday. I Saturday. The book rested between us on the cushion, like a bridge neither of us wanted to cross first. "Still writing?" he asked. I shook my head. "Not lately." "That's a shame," he said. "You were good at it." His voice was calm. Not flirtatious. Not cold. Just honest. I missed that. And for the first time in months, I felt the weight of my aloneness. Not the sadness. Not the heartbreak. Just the simple, heavy truth that I had gotten used to the silence, and I didn't know if that was strength or surrender. "Do you want a drink?" I asked. He nodded. "Wine?" "Sure." I walked to the kitchen. My hands moved without thinking. Bottle. Glasses. Pour. Breathe. When I came back, he was still in the same place, but something had shifted. Maybe it was the way he looked at the book again. Maybe it was the way he looked at me. I handed him a glass. Our fingers didn't touch this time. But they didn't need to. He took a sip and smiled. "You still drink this cheap stuff?" "It's not cheap," I said. "It tastes like college memories." "Exactly," I replied. We laughed. It was small, but it was real. And in that moment, I knew this night wasn't going to go the way I thought it would. He leaned back into the couch like he belonged there. Like there was still a version of the world where this, us, here, made sense. I sat across from him, curled one leg beneath me, holding the wine glass with both hands. Not for warmth. For something to do. Because I wasn't ready to look at him too long. Not yet. I forgot how quiet it gets here, he said. I nodded. I like the quiet, I replied. Yeah, but it's dangerous too. I looked at him then. Really looked. His face had changed in the way people's faces do when they've been carrying something for a long time. Not older. Just more real. What do you mean? I asked. He took a slow sip, then looked straight at me. Silence makes you think about things you've been trying not to. I smiled, but it wasn't a happy one. Maybe that's why I keep the TV on half the time. He didn't laugh, but his eyes softened. We were dancing. Not with our bodies, but with our words. Like every sentence was a careful step toward something we weren't sure we were allowed to touch. You still talk to him? He asked quietly. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a dig. It was a memory, one I hadn't let myself unfold in a long time. No, I said. Not in months. His loss. There it was. The first crack. I didn't respond. I just sipped my wine and looked at the shelves behind him like they had something important to say. You know, he said, shifting slightly, he never really saw you. I turned my head slowly. What? He liked the idea of you. The version he could show off. The woman who laughed at his jokes, looked good in his photos, made him feel like the hero. He paused. But he never saw you. I stared at him, trying to decide if I was angry or just stunned. That's a pretty bold thing to say, I replied. He held my gaze. Calm. Unapologetic. It's the truth. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to defend my ex, even if he hadn't defended me. Part of me wanted to scream. And another part, the quietest part, wanted to cry. Because maybe I'd known it all along. Maybe I'd spent too long pretending to be seen while slowly disappearing. I looked down at my wine glass. The rim had a small smudge of lipstick. I wiped it with my finger and suddenly felt exposed. You should go, I whispered. He didn't move. I should, he said. But I won't. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't empty. Why are you really here? I asked. He hesitated. Then, softly. Because I never stopped thinking about you. And I hate that I waited until he broke you to tell you that. I felt the air shift in the room. Not like wind. Not like storm. But like something ancient and invisible was finally giving us permission to speak. I looked up at him. And this time, I didn't look away. He wasn't handsome in the classic way. He wasn't perfect. But there was something about him, the way he watched me. Like I wasn't broken. Like I was art. I don't know what you want from me, I said. I don't want anything, he replied. I just want to be real with you for once. I stood. My heart was loud in my chest, but my voice stayed even. I'm going to take a shower. He nodded. Okay. I walked toward the hallway. Halfway there, I turned back. You can stay. If you want. His eyes flickered. Something unreadable passed through them. But he only said one word. Okay. And I disappeared into the bathroom, not sure what I had just invited in. The bathroom was warm, fogged with quiet steam. The kind that hugs your skin like a memory you're not sure you asked for. I stood under the water, eyes closed, letting it run over my body like it could rinse away the thoughts that had started to form the moment he stepped into my apartment. Why had I asked him to stay? I didn't know. Maybe I wanted to feel wanted. Maybe I wanted to feel anything. Or maybe I was just tired of being untouched in a world that keeps brushing past you like you're not even there. The water traced down my spine as I breathed slowly. Out there, he was still on my couch. In here, I was still pretending I knew what I was doing. I stepped out, wrapped myself in a towel, and stood in front of the mirror. My reflection was soft and a little sad. Eyes wide, lips still parted like I had one more thing to say and didn't know who I was saving it for. My fingers hesitated near the cabinet. I thought about mascara, lip tint, perfume. But I did none of it. I wanted to be seen the way I really was. Still damp, still vulnerable. Still figuring myself out. I opened the bathroom door and stepped out into the hallway. The lights in the living room were dimmer now. He had turned on the side lamp, just enough glow to make everything feel quieter. More personal. He didn't say anything when he saw me. Didn't stare. Didn't avert his eyes either. He just looked. And in that look, I felt it. Not lust. Not surprise. But something heavier. Something gentler. I stood there, unsure whether to clutch the towel tighter or let it fall. My skin still glistened with moisture. My hair stuck to my shoulders, curling at the ends. He stood slowly. I didn't move. He took one small step toward me, then stopped. "You're beautiful," he said. Not hungry. Not performative. Just honest. I didn't thank him. I didn't smile. I just breathed. Because in that moment, I realized he wasn't talking about my body. He was talking about me. The bathroom was warm, fogged with quiet steam. The kind that hugs your skin like a memory you're not sure you asked for. I stood under the water, eyes closed, letting it run over my body like it could rinse away the thoughts that had started to form the moment he stepped into my apartment. Why had I asked him to stay? I didn't know. Maybe I wanted to feel wanted. Maybe I wanted to feel anything. Or maybe I was just tired of being untouched in a world that keeps brushing past you like you're not even there. The water traced down my spine as I breathed slowly. Out there, he was still on my couch. In here, I was still pretending I knew what I was doing. I stepped out, wrapped myself in a towel, and stood in front of the mirror. My reflection was soft and a little sad. Eyes wide, lips still parted like I had one more thing to say and didn't know who I was saving it for. My fingers hesitated near the cabinet. I thought about mascara, lip tint, perfume. But I did none of it. I wanted to be seen the way I really was. Still damp, still vulnerable. Still figuring myself out. I opened the bathroom door and stepped out into the hallway. The lights in the living room were dimmer now. He had turned on the side lamp, just enough glow to make everything feel quieter. More personal. He didn't say anything when he saw me. Didn't stare. Didn't avert his eyes either. He just looked. And in that look, I felt it. Not lust. Not surprise. But something heavier. Something gentler. I stood there, unsure whether to clutch the towel tighter or let it fall. My skin still glistened with moisture. My hair stuck to my shoulders, curling at the ends. He stood slowly. I didn't move. He took one small step toward me, then stopped. "You're beautiful," he said. Not hungry. Not performative. Just honest. I didn't thank him. I didn't smile. I just breathed. Because in that moment, I realized he wasn't talking about my body. He was talking about me. And that did something to me I wasn't prepared for. I stepped forward, barely, and the towel slipped a little lower. He looked, yes, but not the way other men look. He didn't scan. He didn't devour. He honored. His gaze moved like fingertips over old pages, curious but careful, aware that he was in the presence of something not meant to be rushed. I felt naked, not just in skin, but in soul. And strangely, I wasn't ashamed. "Do you want me to leave?" he asked softly. "No," I replied. "Not unless I ask you to." He nodded. His eyes didn't drop lower. They stayed right on mine. He was giving me the power. All of it. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't someone being desired, I was someone being chosen. For more than my curves. More than my past. More than the story I wore like a bruise beneath my ribs. "Come sit," I said. He walked with me to the couch. I sat cross-legged, the towel still wrapped around me, my body warm from the shower and the silence. He didn't touch me. He just sat beside me. Close, but not pressing. We stared ahead for a moment. At nothing. At everything. "I don't know who I am anymore," I whispered. He didn't offer advice. Didn't try to fix me. He just listened. And that was the most intimate thing anyone had done for me in years. The room was still. The kind of still that only exists between two people holding their breath at the same time. We didn't speak for what felt like forever. Just sat there, me in my towel, him in his silence. I could hear the tick of the old wall clock. The hum of the refrigerator in the distance. The soft, shallow sound of my own breathing. And his. He wasn't trying to fill the silence. He wasn't trying to make me laugh, or distract me, or make this moment easier. He just stayed. I don't know what made me shift. Maybe it was the way he looked at me like he had no agenda. Maybe it was the weight of all the nights I had spent feeling invisible in my own skin. But something inside me stirred, something I hadn't touched in a long time. I turned to face him fully. My body was warm. Not with embarrassment. With awareness. The towel loosened around my chest as I moved. And still, he didn't flinch. Not like men do when they are waiting to be invited in. Not like men do when they are already undressing you in their heads. He was waiting for something else. For me. I didn't adjust the towel. I didn't clutch it or wrap it tighter. I let it fall. Gently. Without drama. Without fear. It slipped from my body like an old story I was finally ready to let go of. And there I was. Naked. Not just in body, but in every possible way. Exposed. Unedited. Unapologetic. He looked. But not like a man looks at a body he wants. He looked like a man seeing something sacred. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to hide. He stood slowly. His movements were gentle, almost sacred. Then he sat beside me on the floor, not the couch, on the floor, like he was grounding himself. I turned slightly, knees bent, legs tucked to the side, still bare. Still, calm. He didn't speak. He just sat there, his shoulder close to mine, his presence warm and steady. My body trembled. Not from cold. From release. Everything I had held in, years of rejection, shame, pretending, was floating to the surface. And instead of running from it, I let it rise. He placed his hand gently on the floor between us. I woke up to light spilling through the blinds, soft and pale and slow. That kind of morning light that doesn't wake you with urgency, but with warmth. With peace. The throw blanket was draped over my body. My skin still bare beneath it, but I wasn't cold. Not even a little. And I wasn't ashamed either. My towel lay crumpled on the floor like a discarded version of myself. The version that needed to cover, to hide, to protect. I turned my head. He was there. Asleep. On the floor beside the couch. His jacket rolled up under his head, arms crossed over his chest, one leg bent, the other stretched out like he had fallen asleep mid-thought. He looked younger in the light. Softer. Like the weight he'd been carrying finally let him rest for a night. I sat up, pulling the blanket around me just enough to feel its texture. And I just looked at him. This man. Who didn't kiss me. Didn't undress me. Didn't even try. This man who sat beside me while I was naked, trembling, breaking apart, and held the space like it was sacred. Like I was sacred. I rose slowly, feet touching the cool floor. I walked quietly to the bathroom and wrapped myself in a robe. When I returned, he was awake. His eyes found me instantly. And again, he didn't scan. Didn't shift. He just smiled. "Hey," he said, voice raspy from sleep. "Hey," I replied. He sat up, stretched lightly, and looked at the morning outside like it belonged to someone else. "I didn't mean to fall asleep," he said. "I'm glad you did," I whispered. We were quiet again. But it wasn't the kind of silence that needed to be broken. "I should head out," he said gently. I nodded. Not because I wanted him to go, but because I knew he needed to. We both did. He stood, brushing himself off. Grabbed his jacket, slung it over his arm. No dramatic goodbye. No lingering stare. Just this. He looked at me, one last time, with that same gaze that undid me hours earlier. That gaze that stripped me without touching a single button. That gaze that said, "I see you." And this time, I smiled. Not to please him. Not to be polite. But because something inside me had softened. Shifted. He walked to the door. Paused. Then looked over his shoulder. "I'm glad I came," he said. I'm glad you stayed, I replied. He nodded. And then, he was gone. No promises. No let's talk soon. Just the echo of something real, something delicate, something that didn't need to last forever to matter deeply. I closed the door behind him, leaned my back against it, and exhaled. And in that breath, I felt it. Not loneliness. Not sadness. But something else. Freedom. From shame. From performance. From needing to be more than I already was. That morning, I made coffee in silence. I poured it slowly, sat at the kitchen table in my robe, bare-legged and peaceful. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't need a text to feel wanted. I didn't need a man's hand on my skin to feel beautiful. I felt it. I was enough. That night didn't end in fireworks. No bodies tangled in bedsheets. No whispered confessions or desperate goodbyes. But in a world that rushes toward climax. Sometimes the quietest moments carry the loudest truths. He didn't undress me. He unburdened me. And that was the most intimate thing I've ever known.